Blood dripped off the human spear as Kyle Warren stood tall over the twitching carcass of the Zarthonian apex predator, the most feared creature on planet Ithoria Prime, now slain by his hands. In the Ithoria Prime capital, the orange-skinned Ithorian scientist Wren slammed his scaly hands on the desk. 3 months. The human explorer Kyle Warren has been stranded in the deadly jungles of Zarthon for 3 months now. Our last 10 rescue teams were slaughtered trying to reach his crash site. When will the Council get off their asses and mount a real operation to find him? Wren's grey-scaled colleague Zal looked up from his holo-projector. The Council sees no point in losing more Ithorian lives for one alien castaway, not after the disastrous war with the Krell cost us so much. They say we must focus on rebuilding. Zal cut him off. Have you forgotten the violent history of humans? The Council fears that inviting them here could lead to humanity conquering our world, just as the Krell almost did. Humans are too unpredictable. Suddenly, a holographic emergency broadcast burst to life on Zal's projector. The scientist gasped at the sight of the human Kyle Warren, scarred and bloodied, standing triumphantly over the slain apex predator. The greatest threat on Ithoria Prime, felled by a single human. By the stars, Zal muttered in disbelief. He actually killed it. That's impossible. Don't you see? Wren urged. This proves humanity's strength. Kyle is still alive out there. We must bring him back. The projector chimed with an urgent summons. The Ithorian High Council demanded Wren and Zal's immediate counsel on the fate of the human survivor. The future of their world now hinged on the actions of one stranded alien. The doors to the High Council chamber flew open as Wren and Zal hurried inside. The room was in an uproar, with councillors arguing and gesticulating wildly. At the center of the storm sat High Councillor Vox, his aged face creased with disbelief and suspicion. "This is impossible," Vox exclaimed, slamming his fist on the table. "No lone human could survive the Zarthon jungles, let alone slay an apex predator. This footage must be a deception, a ploy by our enemies to destabilize Ithoria Prime." Wren stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "High Councillor, I have analyzed the data from Kyle Warren's ship. Everything suggests he was a peaceful explorer, not an agent of chaos. His mission was to study new worlds and establish contact with alien civilizations, not to undermine our society." As the debate raged on, a second broadcast suddenly interrupted the proceedings. The Council fell silent as new footage appeared, showing Kyle Warren standing alongside a group of primitive Zarthonian tribesmen. The tribesmen, communicating through gestures and broken Ithorian, presented Kyle with a ceremonial headdress crafted from the skull of the slain apex. "He's been living among the Zarthonians," Vox gasped, his eyes wide with astonishment. "Learning their ways and helping them defend against the predators?" Wren nodded, a hint of triumph in his voice. "It appears that Kyle has not only survived, but thrived in one of the harshest environments on Ithoria Prime. He has earned the respect and admiration of the Zarthonian tribes, a feat no Ithorian has ever accomplished." The Council erupted into a fresh round of arguments, with some demanding that Kyle be brought before them for questioning, while others called for a more cautious approach. Wren, sensing an opportunity, raised his voice above the din. "High Councillor, I propose that we send a small delegation led by Zal and myself to meet with Kyle and the Zarthonians. We can establish a peaceful dialogue and assess the potential risks and benefits of an alliance with humanity. Kyle's unique skills and knowledge could be invaluable in our ongoing exploration of Zarthon." Vox, still unconvinced, leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed in thought. After a long moment he nodded slowly. "Very well, but be cautious, Wren. We cannot afford to underestimate this human or the consequences of his presence on our world." As the Council adjourned, Wren and Zal exchanged a glance, both knowing that the fate of Ithoria Prime now rested on the shoulders of one remarkable human and the unlikely allies he had found in the depths of the Zarthonian jungles. As Wren and Zal boarded the armored shuttle, their minds raced with the implications of Kyle Warren's presence on Ithoria Prime. Zal drummed his clawed fingers on the control panel. I worry that this human could throw off the balance we've worked so hard to maintain in the Zarthon region. The tribes there are primitive, easily swayed. His influence might stir up conflict where there was peace. Ren shook his head. Or we could learn from him. This human adapted and thrived in an environment that kills our kind. We've grown soft, reliant on our gadgets and computers. Kyle had to reconnect with more primal instincts to survive. There may be wisdom in that. Wisdom? In savagery? Zal scoffed. A chime interrupted their debate. Ren pulled up a message from Dr. Xen. The xenobiologist's voice was grave. I've analyzed the apex creature Kyle killed. It's not natural. The beast shows signs of genetic tampering and cybernetic grafting. This is an engineered bioweapon, and Kyle's victory over it may have painted a target on all of Ethoria Prime. Zal and Ren exchanged troubled looks as the message ended. Zal's brow furrowed. A rival faction, perhaps, using monsters to destabilize the region? So it would seem so, Ren said grimly as the shuttle touched down at the edge of the Zarthonian village. But let's not jump to conclusions. We must learn what Kyle knows. Kyle Warren sat cross-legged among the Zarthonian elders, his human frame draped in their tribal garb, an alien skull headdress upon his brow. He looked up at the Ethorians and smiled. "Ah, you made it," he said in fluent Zarthonian. "Please, join us. There is much to discuss." As Ren and Zal took their seats on the woven mats, the elders began to speak, their voices heavy with worry. "The apex grows stronger," one said. "Larger, smarter. Our hunters cannot stop them." Another elder pointed to Kyle. "This Earther, he fought the beast and won, showed us its weaknesses. With his help, we may yet survive this new threat." Understanding dawned on Ren and Zal. Their mission had grown far beyond a simple retrieval. The engineered apex were an imminent danger, one that could threaten the whole of Ethoria Prime if left unchecked, and Kyle, with his skills and knowledge, might be the key to stopping them. As the council meeting stretched on, the two Ethorian scientists realized they were in uncharted territory. They would need to forge an alliance with both Kyle and the Zarthonians, combining their advanced technology with the humans' primal cunning, if they hoped to unravel the mystery of the apex and secure the future of their world. As the tense council meeting in the Zarthonian village continued, Kyle leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "These new apex aren't like anything I've seen before. They're organized, strategic. It's like they're being guided by some higher intelligence." "I don't know," Kyle admitted. "But I've been tracking their movements, studying their behavior. There's a pattern to their attacks, like they're testing our defenses, probing for weaknesses." Zal drummed his claws on the armrest of his chair. "If you're right and these apex are being controlled, then we need to find the source. Cut off the head of the beast, as it were." Kyle nodded. "I have a hunch that there's a facility hidden deep in the jungle, some kind of command center. If we could locate it, maybe we could—" Suddenly a Zarthonian scout burst into the hut, his scales slick with sweat. "Apex, a whole pack of them headed this way." "Minutes, maybe less," the scout panted. Ren and Zal exchanged a worried glance. Kyle turned to the Zarthonian chief. "Get your warriors ready. We need to fortify the village, set up choke points, funnel them into kill zones." The chief barked orders in the guttural Zarthonian tongue, and the warriors sprang into action. Kyle turned to Ren and Zal. "I could use your help. Ren, your shuttle has advanced sensors, right? We need eyes in the sky, track their movements." Ren nodded, already tapping commands into his wrist computer. "I can link the feed to your HUD." "Good. Zal, you mentioned sonic tech earlier." Zal's eyes lit up. "Yes, we use it for excavation, but at the right frequency it could disorient the apex, throw off their coordination." "Perfect. Get it set up at the perimeter. We'll use it as a last line of defense." As the Ethorians hurried to their tasks, Kyle surveyed the village, his mind racing. The Zarthonians were fierce warriors, but against these enhanced apex, they'd need every advantage. Kyle relayed the information to the Zarthonian chief, who shouted new orders. Warriors scrambled to their positions, primitive spears and high-tech blasters at the ready. Ren watched the human work, marveling at the way he seemed to belong here, among these alien warriors. In just a short time, Kyle had become a part of their tribe, a leader they would follow into battle without hesitation. "He's something else, isn't he?" Zal murmured, as if reading Ren's thoughts. "A born leader." Ren nodded. "The way he brings people together, forge alliances, it's remarkable. If we could harness that, bring that spirit of unity to Ethoria Prime." His musings were cut short by a bone-chilling roar. The Apex had arrived, their engineered bodies bristling with unnatural muscle and gleaming cybernetics. They charged into the village, a tide of fangs and claws. But Kyle and the Zarthonians were ready. A hail of blaster fire and sonic blasts met the Apex, sending them reeling. Kyle was everywhere, rallying warriors, directing fire, his movements a blur of speed and precision. Ren and Zal joined the fray, their Ithorian weapons adding to the barrage. For a moment it seemed the village might be overrun, but then Kyle's voice rose above the chaos, shouting orders in flawless Zarthonian. The warriors responded, shifting their formation, luring the Apex into the kill zones Kyle had prepared. Plasma mines detonated, sonic pulses disoriented, and the village's natural defenses, deep spike-lined trenches, became traps for the rampaging predators. Slowly, inexorably, the tide turned. The Apex fell one by one, until at last the battle was won. The village erupted in cheers, the Zarthonians raising their weapons in triumph. In the sudden quiet, Ren and Zal found Kyle exhausted but victorious. The human grinned at them, clapping them each on the shoulder. "Couldn't have done it without you." Ren shook his head in amazement. "No, Kyle, this victory belongs to you, your leadership, your tactics. You saved this village." "And perhaps all of Ethoria Prime," Zal added solemnly. "If these Apex are truly an engineered threat controlled by some hidden enemy, we will need your help to stop them." Kyle's grin faded, replaced by a look of grim determination. "Then let's get to work. We have a mystery to solve and a planet to save." As the dust settled over the Zarthonian village, Ren turned to Zal. "This Dr. Zorn, his work sounds dangerous, unnatural. We need to track him down before he unleashes more of these monstrosities." Zal nodded grimly. "Agreed, but we can't do it alone. We need someone who knows this jungle, who can navigate its secrets." Their eyes fell on Kyle, who was helping the Zarthonians salvage what they could from the battle's wreckage. Ren approached the human. "Kyle, we have a proposition. We believe the source of these enhanced Apex is a hidden facility, controlled by a rogue Ithorian scientist. We need your help to find it." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "This scientist, he's responsible for the attacks?" Zal stepped forward. "We believe so. Dr. Zorn was my mentor years ago, brilliant but unhinged, obsessed with creating the ultimate predator. If he's behind this, then we need to stop him," Kyle finished. "I'm in. These Zarthonians have become my people. I won't let them suffer any more of these abominations." As they prepared for the expedition, Ren's communicator chimed. Dr. Zen's holographic image flickered to life. "I've analyzed the Apex remains, the genetic modifications. They bear Zorn's signature. There's no doubt now. He's the one controlling them." Zal's scales paled. "I always knew his work would lead to ruin. We have to find him before it's too late." They set out into the dense jungle, a small force of Zarthonian warriors accompanying the trio. Kyle took point, his senses attuned to the alien environment. Ren marveled as the human picked up tracks, interpreted signs that the Ithorians would have missed. "He moves through the jungle like he was born to it," the scientist murmured to Zal, "like it's a part of him." Zal watched as Kyle signaled for silence, then motioned for the group to take cover. A heartbeat later, a massive serpentine creature burst from the undergrowth, fangs glistening with venom. But Kyle was ready. With a burst of plasma fire, he drove the beast back, then led the group in a flanking maneuver that left the creature writhing in its death throes. "Incredible," Zal breathed. "To have such instincts, such primal awareness." "It's what's kept him alive out here," Ren said. Where our technology fails, his adaptability thrives. As they pressed deeper into the jungle, the terrain grew more treacherous. Quicksand pits and lashing thorn vines threatened at every turn, but Kyle's keen eye and quick reflexes guided them through, even as the storm clouds gathered overhead. When the downpour hit, it was unlike anything the Ithorians had ever seen. The rain fell in sheets, turning the ground to sucking mud, threatening to sweep them away in flash floods. But Kyle urged them on, finding shelter in the ruins of ancient Zarthonian structures that dotted the jungle. "It's the human spirit," Ren said. "That indomitable will to survive, to protect what matters. It's what makes them such a formidable species." As the storm subsided, they emerged to find a changed landscape. Trees uprooted, new waterways carved through the muddy earth. But Kyle's unerring sense of direction led them ever closer to their goal. And then, as they crested a ridge, they saw it. A strange metallic structure half buried in the jungle's heart. Unusual energy signatures pulsed from within, and the whine of advanced machinery filled the air. "Dr. Zorn's facility," Zal whispered. "It has to be." But as they approached, a prickling sense of unease washed over the group. Kyle's hand tightened on his rifle. Ren checked his scanner, his eyes widening. The energy readings, they're spiking, like the facility is preparing for something. A rustling in the underbrush, a glint of metal in the shadows, and then a chilling realization. As the sinister truth sank in, Kyle's hand tightened on his rifle. "Zorn knows we're here," he said grimly. "He's been expecting us." Ren's scales paled. "Then we've walked right into his trap." A chilling howl echoed through the jungle, followed by the crash of underbrush. From the shadows, a pack of apex predators emerged, their engineered bodies bristling with unnatural muscle and gleaming cybernetics. But these were not the creatures they had faced before. These apex moved with a terrifying intelligence, their movements coordinated and precise. "By the stars," Zal breathed. "Zorn's latest creations, they're evolving." The apex charged, a tide of fangs and claws, but Kyle was ready. With a roar of defiance, he met the onslaught head-on, his plasma rifle flaring. He moved with a speed and ferocity that left Ren and Zal stunned, his every motion a blur of deadly precision. One by one, the enhanced apex fell, no match for Kyle's primal fury. He seemed to anticipate their every move, countering with a savage grace that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Ren and Zal could only watch in amazement as the human single-handedly turned the tide, protecting his Ithorian and Zarthonian companions with a fierce determination. As the last apex crumpled, Kyle stood amid the carnage, his chest heaving. Ren approached cautiously, his voice tinged with awe. "Kyle, I've never seen anything like it. Your combat skills, your tactical genius. It's beyond anything we could have imagined." Zal nodded, his eyes wide. "The way you took them down, it was as if you could predict their every move. It's almost terrifying, the extent of your capabilities." Kyle shook his head, his expression grim. "It's not over yet. Zorn's still out there, and if these apex are any indication, he's got more surprises in store for us." With renewed determination, the group breached the facility's perimeter, discovering a vast underground complex. Advanced technology and genetic experimentation labs stretched as far as the eye could see, a testament to the depth of Zorn's mad ambition. As they navigated the labyrinthine structure, Ren and Zal exchanged troubled glances. "The ethical implications of Zorn's work," Ren murmured. "The potential consequences if his creations were to fall into the wrong hands." Zal nodded solemnly. "It's a threat to all of Ithoria Prime, but," he added, glancing at Kyle, "perhaps it's no coincidence that Kyle, a being from another world, was the one to expose it. As if the universe itself knew we needed an outsider's perspective to see the danger lurking in our midst." Deep within the facility's heart, they found Dr. Zorn. The exiled scientist stood amid a sea of bubbling tanks and whirring machinery, his face a mask of cold determination. He turned to face them, his eyes glinting with a grudging respect as they fell on Kyle. "I've been monitoring your progress," Zorn said, his voice a silken purr. I must admit I'm impressed. Your abilities, Kyle, they're extraordinary. Together, you and I could create a new order on Ethoria Prime. You, the ultimate apex predator, at my side. Kyle's jaw tightened. I'm not interested in your twisted vision, Zorn. My loyalty is to the Zarthonians and the Ethorian people who have welcomed me as one of their own. In the aftermath of the confrontation with Dr. Zorn, Ren and Zal secured the rogue scientist in a containment cell within his own facility. As Ethorian security forces arrived to take control of the situation, the two scientists began the daunting task of analyzing Dr. Zorn's research and assessing the potential ramifications for Ethoria Prime. Ren pored over the data, his eyes widening with each new revelation. By the stars, Zal, the extent of Zorn's work is staggering. The genetic modifications, the cybernetic enhancements. He was pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible. Zal nodded grimly, his own gaze fixed on a series of encrypted communications logs. And it seems he wasn't working alone. Look at these transmissions, Ren. He was in contact with an alien race we've never encountered before, the QXR. As they delved deeper into the QXR communications, a chilling picture began to emerge. The QXR, it seemed, were a technologically advanced species with a history of conquest and subjugation. They had provided Dr. Zorn with cutting-edge genetic engineering technology in exchange for his promise to create the ultimate biological weapon. They were using him, Zal, Ren said, his voice trembling with realization. Using him to destabilize Ethoria Prime, to soften us up for an invasion. The apex predators were just the beginning. Zal's scales paled at the implications. If the QXR have technology that surpasses our own, if they have other agents like Zorn working to undermine us, Ethoria Prime could be facing its greatest threat yet. At that moment, Kyle entered the room, his expression grim. Ren turned to him, a newfound respect in his eyes. Kyle, we cannot thank you enough. Your actions, your unwavering commitment to protecting our people, it's humbling. You had every opportunity to seize power for yourself, to join forces with Zor, but you didn't. You chose to stand with us. Kyle shook his head, his voice firm. There was never a choice, Ren. My loyalty, my duty. It's to the Zarthonians who took me in, to the Ethorians who gave me a chance. I won't let any threat, whether it's a rogue scientist or an alien invasion, destroy the bonds we've built. Azael placed a clawed hand on Kyle's shoulder. And that, Kyle, that's what makes you extraordinary. Not your combat prowess, not your survival skills, but your heart, your unwavering moral compass in the face of temptation and adversity. As the weight of the QXR revelation sank in, the trio began to discuss their next steps. They knew they would need to warn the Ethorian High Council, to prepare Ethoria Prime for the possibility of a full-scale invasion. But even as they planned and strategized, a sense of hope began to take root. With Kyle on our side, Ren said, a fierce determination in his voice, I believe we can face any challenge. His presence, his actions, they've already changed the course of our history. Together, Ethoria Prime and humanity, we can stand against any threat. Just then a chime from Ren's communicator interrupted their conversation. The scientist's eyes widened as he read the incoming message. It's the High Council. News of what's happened here has spread across the planet. They've convened an emergency session, and they're summoning us to the capital to provide our first-hand accounts. Zal inhaled sharply. They'll want our recommendations, our analysis of the QXR threat. This could determine the future of Ethoria Prime. As they boarded the shuttle back to the capital, Ren turned to Kyle, his expression pensive. Kyle, I know you didn't ask for this, for the attention, the responsibility, but your actions have made you a symbol of hope for our people. A legend. Kyle stared out the window, watching the Ethorian landscape race by below. I never set out to be a hero, Ren. I did what I believed was right, what I had to do. Zal leaned forward, his voice filled with conviction. And that, Kyle, and that's precisely why you are one. why your presence on Ethoria Prime has been so transformative. You've shown us the power of an individual to shape the course of history, and the strength that comes from standing together against the darkness. As the shuttle approached the capital, the trio fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. They knew that the greatest challenges still lay ahead, that the Quxar threat would test the resolve of Ethoria Prime like never before. But with Kyle Warren at their side, they dared to hope that a new era of unity and strength was dawning for their world, and perhaps for the galaxy itself. The shuttle touched down on the landing pad, and the doors hissed open to reveal a sight that left even Kyle speechless. Massive crowds of Ethorians had gathered, stretching as far as the eye could see. A sea of faces, all turned towards the human who had become a symbol of hope and resilience for their world. As Kyle stepped out onto the platform, the crowd erupted into... Ren and Zal stood before the Ethorian High Council, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The chamber was abuzz with murmurs as the councillors discussed the implications of the Quxar threat and Kyle's role in uncovering it. Ren stepped forward, his voice steady. Esteemed councillors, the evidence is clear. The Quxar pose an imminent danger to Ethoria Prime, and we must prepare for the worst. Kyle Warren's unique skills and knowledge could be instrumental in developing our defense strategy. Zal nodded, adding, Kyle has already proven himself a valuable ally. His ability to adapt and thrive in the harshest of environments, coupled with his tactical prowess, make him an asset we cannot afford to ignore. The councillors exchanged glances, some skeptical, others intrigued. High Councillor Vox leaned forward, his brow furrowed. And what of the risks? Can we trust this human with our most sensitive military information? At that moment, a Zarthonian elder stepped forward, his scales gleaming in the chamber's light. If I may, High Councillor, he began, his voice deep and resonant, I have seen firsthand the bravery and leadership of Kyle Warren. He saved my village from the apex predators, risking his own life to protect our people. The elder paused, his gaze sweeping the room. But more than that, he took the time to learn our ways, to treat us as equals despite our primitive customs. This human has shown compassion and respect for all species, a true testament to his character. The councillors listened intently, some nodding in agreement. The elder continued, I believe that Kyle Warren represents the best of humanity, and that an alliance with him and his people could be the key to our survival against the Quxar. As the elder finished speaking, a hush fell over the chamber. High Councillor Vox looked to his fellow councillors, gauging their reactions. After a long moment, he spoke. In light of this new testimony, I propose we put it to a vote. All in favour of appointing Kyle Warren as a special advisor to the Ethorian military. One by one, the councillors raised their clawed hands until a clear majority was reached. Vox nodded solemnly. Then it is decided. Kyle Warren will work closely with Ren and Zal to develop a comprehensive defense plan against the Quxar. They will have full access to our technology and resources. Ren and Zal exchanged a look of relief and excitement as the council adjourned. They hurried to find Kyle, eager to share the news and begin their work. In the days that followed, the trio pored over Ethorian military records and Zarthonian battle tactics, looking for ways to integrate their strengths. Kyle's innovative thinking quickly became apparent as he proposed a multi-layered defense system that combined the best of both worlds. We can use advanced Ethorian sensors to detect Quxar ships from a distance, he explained, pointing to a holographic map. Then we lure them into the jungles, where the Zarthonians' guerrilla tactics can take them by surprise. We hit them hard and fast, then melt back into the wilderness. Ren and Zal marveled at the elegance of the plan, which played to each species' strengths while minimizing their weaknesses. As they worked to refine the details, Kyle also took the time to share his knowledge with the Ethorian military. The Ethorian soldiers were initially skeptical of the humans' unconventional methods, but as they saw the results firsthand, their respect for Kyle grew. They began to see him not just as a valuable ally, but as a true friend and mentor. As word of Kyle's contributions spread across Ithoria Prime, Ren and Zal couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. They had gone from viewing humans as a potential threat to seeing one as their greatest hope for survival. "It's remarkable, isn't it?" Ren mused one evening as they watched Kyle demonstrate a new combat technique to a group of eager Ithorian soldiers. "The way he bridges the gap between our species, forging bonds of friendship and cooperation in the face of adversity." Zal nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "He has a gift, that's for sure, a way of bringing out the best in everyone he meets, no matter their background or beliefs." As the sun set over the training grounds, Ren and Zal felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. With Kyle's guidance and the combined strengths of the Ithorians and Zarthonians, they knew they stood a fighting chance against the looming Kuxar threat. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The human explorer, who had crash-landed on their world just a few short months ago, had become the key to their survival, and perhaps to a new era of peace and unity for all of Ithoria Prime. As the preparations for the Kuxar invasion continued, Kyle was surprised by an unexpected visitor, a Kuxar defector named Zortak. Zortak claimed to have vital information about the Kuxar's plans for conquering Ithoria Prime. "I've grown disillusioned with my people's endless expansion," Zortak confessed to Kyle, Ren and Zal in a secret meeting. "The peaceful ways of the Ithorians have shown me a better path. I seek asylum here, and in return, I'll share all I know about the Kuxar's capabilities and strategies." Ren and Zal exchanged skeptical glances, but Kyle urged them to hear the defector out. Zortak proceeded to lay out detailed intelligence on Kuxar military tech, tactics, and timelines. "There's more," Zortak said gravely. "The Kuxar have been watching you closely, Kyle. They see you as the biggest threat to their invasion. They're accelerating their plans and will likely target you first." Kyle absorbed this sobering news, his brow furrowed in thought. Armed with Zortak's inside knowledge, he dove into adapting Ithoria Prime's defenses. As Kyle worked tirelessly to prepare the Ithorians and Zarthonians for the imminent onslaught, Ren and Zal took stock of the incredible journey that had led them here. "Kyle's arrival changed everything," Ren mused. "He challenged our long-held assumptions and pushed us to evolve in the face of this existential threat." Zal nodded, his old skepticism replaced by a deep respect for the human, his resilience, his ability to unite and inspire us. "I'm honored to call him a friend and ally. Whatever happens, the bonds we've forged will endure." With the QXR fleet looming on the horizon, Kyle, Ren and Zal stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to lead their forces in a battle that would define the future of Ithoria Prime. The odds were steep, but they were determined to fight to the last, to protect their home and the unprecedented alliance they had built. As the battle against the Kuxar invasion raged on, Zal burst into Ren's command center, his scales pale and his voice shaking. "Ren, I just received word from the front lines. It's Kyle. He's been hit." Ren's eyes widened, his heart sinking. "What happened?" Zal pulled up a holo display, showing the wreckage of the Kuxar command ship. Kyle led the strike team that took out their flagship. They succeeded, but he took a direct hit from a plasma cannon. They're rushing him to the medical facility now. Without a word, Ren and Zal raced to the medical wing, their minds reeling. They found Kyle lying on a biobed, his body broken and burned, barely clinging to life. The human's eyes fluttered open as they approached, a flicker of recognition passing over his face. "Ren, Zal," Kyle's voice was a hoarse whisper. "I need to tell you something." The Ithorians leaned in close, their hearts heavy. Kyle coughed, his breath rattling in his chest. The Kuxar, they were planning to use Ithoria Prime as a staging ground for an even bigger invasion, one that could threaten the whole galaxy. Ren's scales bristled with alarm. "What do you mean?" Kyle winced, the effort of speaking taking its toll. "I found out during the mission, managed to transmit the intel to my superiors in the Terran Dominion before I got hit. They'll know what to do with it." Zal placed a gentle hand on Kyle's shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. You've done more than we could have ever asked, Kyle. You've given us a fighting chance. Kyle managed a weak smile, his eyes growing distant. I need you to promise me something, both of you. Anything, Ren said, fighting back tears. Tell my people, tell them how much I respect the Ithorians and the Zarthonians. The bonds we've formed here, they have to endure, no matter what comes next. Zal nodded solemnly. We will, Kyle. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Kyle's breathing grew shallow, his life slipping away. It's been an honor to fight alongside you. Such noble allies. I hope it made a difference. With a final shuddering breath, Kyle Warren, the human who had changed the course of Ithoria Prime's history, was gone. Ren and Zal stood in silence, the weight of their friend's passing settling over them like a shroud. We have to make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain, Ren said at last, his voice hardening with resolve. The Khazar may have lost this battle, but the war is far from over. Zal nodded, his eyes gleaming with determination. And we'll face whatever comes next together, Ithorians, Zarthonians, and the memory of the human who gave everything to protect us. As the Ithorian-Zarthonian forces pushed the Khazar invaders back, Ren and Zal carried Kyle's final message to their people. The story of the humans' bravery and selflessness spread like wildfire, becoming a rallying cry for the Allied forces. In the days and weeks that followed, Ren and Zal often found themselves reflecting on the profound impact Kyle had made on their world. The scars of the war would take time to heal, but they knew that the human spirit would continue to guide and inspire them as they faced the challenges ahead. And so, the legend of Kyle Warren, the apex predator from another world, took root in the hearts and minds of the Ithorian and Zarthonian people, a testament to the power of sacrifice, the strength of unity, and the unbreakable bonds that could form between species in the face of adversity. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.